Hello, superstars, friends from my dear friend Nadiya Shah. I am Yuriria Robles and I'm bringing you the predictions for all the signs for the month of April 2025. After listening to the general astrological conditions, remember to check your ascendant and moon signs as well as your sun sign so you have a more complete explanation of what the astrological energy has in store for you. Congratulations to Aries and Taurus who will have their birthdays this month.
The Sun's passage into Aries this year is a profound renewal of consciousness and spirituality that will last for 14 years, due to Neptune's first entry into this sign, where it will remain until October the 22nd. Then it will return to Pisces for its last brief moment. In that renewal, we will all have the obligation to examine our individuality, which encourages us to act and, of course, to question our battles, finding the meaning of defending and attacking. In a state of incoherence or non-coherence, we can become embroiled in an ideal, sacred, or religious wars, defending a spiritual cause with military methods. Fortunately, the ruling planet of Aries, Mars, will be in a sensitive and emotional dialogue with Mercury, the Moon, and Uranus. The sum of these energies is a foretaste of the harmony that will take a year to establish. Now, let me point out that when it comes to a gentle meeting between celestial bodies, whether trines or sextiles, which is the case in this configuration, it doesn't prompt action like harsh aspects do. This is when the exercise of free will becomes much more evident, because it isn't forced, but rather chosen. In other words, we begin to understand it as a gift that can sustain us in the times of change that are taking place. There are three conditions we must consider in general. The first is that Mars is in a difficult dialogue with Chiron, which has made us feel that our actions have left us with a wound that limits our spontaneity and the energy to act. Whether we act recklessly, ineptly, or slowly, the truth is that Chiron's passage through the first sign of the Zodiac is long, and there are still 3 years left until it concludes. Chiron's influence in Aries is intended to make us recognize that prudence is important, but above all, forgiveness regarding our actions and those of others. Holding on to resentment exasperates us, and that's when we become even more erratic and reckless, provoking actions that are downright hostile, the effect of which is a hard lesson to assimilate, with indelible and evident consequences. The second condition is that Mars itself, during the first half of the month, will be in an uncomfortable sign, making us fickle, feeling threatened and passive aggressive, because we fear having our security taken away. This is frankly a futile battle, because if changes come, imposed especially by the last eclipse in Aries, which occurred on March 29th, and announces new situations, we will have to adapt to them. The third condition is that as soon as Mars leaves Cancer, where it has been for 3 months, it will also reestablish for the third time the opposition with Pluto, which turns the situations we face into moments of power, struggles of confrontation with the group and the establishment and the established consensus. We will want to express who we are and what we can create and give. But the group wants to impose homogeneity, meaning that we are all equal and must conform, no matter what, to the general conditions. This month, Mars encourages from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of our true identity. The goal is to achieve a spiritual and warrior stance that allows us to mature and sustain presence, calm, and the energy to move forward. Furthermore, both the full moon of April the 12th and the new moon on the 27th have a difficulty with Mars. This means that adjusting our emotions and actions will not be entirely easy because external circumstances are complex, and conforming will not be easy, but on the contrary, a challenge to our will. The ability to remain centered no matter what is essential from now on. The full moon is the first part of the cycle that completes after the eclipse on March the 29th. It's a tense moment in itself, but this time it's the sun accompanied by Chiron and the luminaries in a square to Mars in Cancer. The full moon is in Libra, demanding harmony, and since Venus is in the company of Saturn at this moment, it asks us to commit to maintaining diplomacy, justice, and elegance in the face of circumstances. I repeat, we feel threatened, but in reality, if we maintain discipline with what we want to commit to, adapting to change will be easier than directly confronting what we consider threatening. From the wound, we only seek revenge and restitution, when what is evolutionary is to find understanding and compassion to achieve wisdom. At the middle of the month, the reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to our instincts and then what we are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what we can do and what we can't. The sun's passage into Taurus on April the 20th imposes a Venusian tone on the atmosphere. On this occasion, it is not very sweet, but rather demands proof of love and therefore commitment. By this day, Venus has already resumed its direct motion under the conditions I've just described, and by the end of the month, it will reach Neptune, inspiring once again with the light of infinity and the universal to renew the loving and spiritual mode we must now express. With the new moon in Taurus on the 27th, a cycle free of eclipses finally begins, but in a square to the opposition of Mars and Pluto. The temptation to be nefarious is enormous. Imposing our will so that things remain as they are will create a huge problem, a clash of wills that will hurt everyone involved. Unless everyone adjusts with commitment and discipline, understanding that compassion and goodwill are essential for coexistence. Regarding communication, we find that at this time, Mercury's retrograde motion in Pisces is causing enormous confusion. This isn't a time for dates or precise data, but rather for imagining and creating and above all understanding that compassion is for the benefit of all. We are moving towards a commitment to this type of thinking, belief and understanding. We will be asked to commit to causes that support integration into artistic, imaginative and above all compassionate thinking. It is a goal that involves us all and there's no way to skip the test. Mars is supporting this type of communication, allowing for sensitive actions that support the review of communication, as these are familiar situations that will occur several times before Mercury emerges from its shadow on April the 25th. Growth is now emphasized, as always, by Jupiter in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Mercury's retrograde motion brings a double complication for communications and mobility, because superficial or careless growth is impossible until we finish examining our feelings, as well as the confusion, deception, and all lies that have guided us for some time. So until Mercury regains its speed, direction, and favorable position, it's best to focus on clarifying our thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, and dreams from imaginings and idealizations, self-deceptions, confusion, or lies that we might not recognize at other times. Regarding love, relationships, desires, and values, these must also be reviewed, because during Venus retrogrades, what matters is being honest about what we truly value and desire. However, it's also heading towards an encounter with Saturn, where we are forced to recognize that this is a commitment to sustain what we desire and love. Finding a universal meaning for those values and loves will be essential. That is, it's about disconnecting the selfish and individual element to understand that love is truly universal, regardless of the individuals or the bearers of those desires or loves. So it's time to experience infinite love alongside compassion, not to provoke circumstances that personally satisfy what we want. It's a strange situation because the desire for love is amplified, but at the same time it demands a commitment to be altruistic, splendid, and generous. Venus leads us to review our true desires, but understood from a universal and essential perspective, loving for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It's also an exercise in uniting opposites, bringing the universal into being with commitment and compassion. The group of planets in Pisces is still very strong because the North Node amplifies what the sign filters, which is a longing for the spiritual, and this implies a commitment that will be imposed on us by Saturn. This month is already different because Neptune passed into Aries for the first time, so the desire to unite with the spirit as it has been building over the past few years will remain a personal commitment because we desired it, love it, and think about it. At least for these months, we will adjust what we thought was an inspiration that surpassed us towards a concrete daily reality of spiritual growth. With Neptune's passage into Aries, a gentle dialogue with Pluto will be established for a long time. The group consciousness of Aquarius, with Plutonian strength and power, will mesh well with Neptune's aspirations, tempering our character towards spirituality and universality. Towards the end of the month, with the celebration of Children's Day in Mexico, the new moon in conjunction with Jupiter reminds us of the importance of being lighthearted and fun, especially by trying to communicate in a gentle, lighthearted, and even enthusiastic manner what we feel, hope, and understand about the meaning of life and its value. See you next month. Aries, congratulations to those Aries who celebrate their birthdays this month. For you and your companions who had their birthdays in March, a spiritual renewal awaits within your own parameters, starting now and for 14 years to come. Since this is your solar return, from now on, you must open your consciousness to the universal and move with this way of understanding life. This manner, you will find enough faith to move and act, although you may still feel doubt, pain, or resentment for not having acted in time, whether ahead or behind, or for having been unjustly towards you or suffered abandonment. What exists is the now, the present, that gives us the opportunity to understand the lesson of what happened, forgiving the past, and acting on that experience with wisdom starting from today. It's time to renew your image. Neptune's entry into Aries will grant you charisma and an aura of light and spirituality. On the other hand, it's also true that you won't be able to see what's happening to you clearly, not with precise and defined limits. It's an expansion with faith, although inconsistency can lead you to religious wars that you will defend at all costs. The situation of Mars always affects you personally, so I advise you to listen to the introduction to understand all its movements. So you should know that Mars is urging you this month to take protective actions the first part of the month and the second part towards an expressive confrontation of your true identity with authority. The goal is to achieve a spiritual and warrior posture that allows you to mature and sustain presence, calm, and energy to move forward. The presence of Saturn, Mercury, and Venus in retrograde motion, as well as the North Node in Pisces, leads you to renew your thoughts of communications and loves. Above all, the idealization or lies you tell yourself. You aspire to an ideal, but it's true that Saturn brings clarity, realism, and commitment to bring you closer to what you imagine. Let's note that this is not the time to demand clarity, concrete facts, or data. If they are provided, they will need to be readjusted later. Saturn is accompanied by Uranus in a harmonious dialogue, proposing a renewal of discipline or a new commitment to the institutions you are collaborating with in order to achieve new income. Cooperate willingly. This will prepare you for future growth. Take advantage of Jupiter in Gemini, which is in a harmonious dialogue with you. The Sun's passage from Aries to Taurus on the 20th implies an activation of your values and resources. The presence of Uranus has long imposed a renewal or connection with technology to achieve new sources of income. Pluto in Aquarius also brings you the agreement and strength of your groups of friends, hopes that balance your desire for personal achievement for the benefit of all. When Mars confronts Pluto again, we will find that our capacity to act will awaken our instincts, and the option is to move forward what we want to achieve from within, not from without, and certainly not against others. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we feel hurt and abandoned, but also compelled to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity, especially with your partner and associates. They will ask you to be kind, graceful, and above all impartial. On April the 27th, with the new moon in Taurus, the tense dialogue that forces you to confront authority is reinforced once again. This is due to the resistance to conforming our self-expression to what the group needs, due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto. It is not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. At the end of the month, we are left with the open question of what is worth recognizing in order to open a relationship with your spirit so that you cooperate with the universal good. Taurus, congratulations to those Taurus celebrating their birthdays this month. With the Sun's passage into Aries, an energy is activated that you know because you feel like fighting against what you fear most or don't know, the immaterial, the spirit that moves people and situations, and you fear it because your strength lies in the concrete, the real, and the material. However, on this occasion, your encounter with the spiritual dimension will be emphasized not for 1 month, but for 14 years, while Neptune stays in Aries. You will do well to delve into this knowledge, because after that time it will be your turn to renew your spiritual and artistic connections more closely. You can still say that it is your friends, lovers, and commitments who are inspired and driven by this matter of the spirit and faith. You're right, but your hopes are also veiled by Neptune, not only because it brings aspirations that are impossible to achieve, but also because sometimes these have such high levels of light that only divinity can reach them. We as humans see the brilliance, and that's what attracts us. That's where you can start. When the sun reaches Taurus, it implies an activation of your personality, of your organization, and for some years now, of your renewal due to the presence of Uranus, which has come to show you new ways of organizing, of presenting yourself to others. It's surprising how much you've renewed. And we are now moving on to the last part, which involves finally understanding that life is change and that we must adapt as quickly as possible. With Mercury in retrograde and returning to its normal speed later in the month, it leads you to review emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments. May these lead us to understand that we are a whole and that for now aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies in order to cooperate with the universal field. Venus leads us to review our true desires, but understood from a universal and essential perspective, to love for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It's also an exercise in uniting opposites, bringing the universal into being with commitment and compassion, keeping in mind that Venus is your ruling planet and the sign it's in, as well as its own movements and connections, affects you deeply. So if it indicates a review this month, that's precisely what you'll do in relation to your friends and hopes, and even if it means changing your point of view. I know it won't be easy, but of course, now with the Uranian presence in your sign for so long, you can achieve it. Mars encourages this month from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of our true identity. The point is that in your immediate surroundings, whether neighbors, siblings, or cousins, they will feel threatened and compelled to defend what gives you and everyone else security. But your friends aren't entirely in agreement because they may feel you are being stubborn about changes that are beneficial for everyone. The goal is to achieve a spiritual and warrior stance that allows us to mature and maintain presence, center, calm, and the energy to move forward. The reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to our instincts and then what we are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what we can do and what we can't. The harmonious dialogue between Saturn in Pisces and Uranus in your sign makes it easier for you to renew your discipline. Seeks to engage in new ways to achieve your goals and objectives. Due to the presence of Jupiter in Gemini, you are now clear that relationships help you, they are resources, and they help you create new ones. Although I know it takes effort, since neither thinking nor speaking is easy for you to be agile or superficial, you must take advantage of this because it will bring you many benefits. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we will feel hurt and abandoned, but also obligated to be fair, especially in the work area and your health. Don't be afraid to examine how you feel and take the necessary actions to restore your health and well-being at work. It's true that there are complex situations that don't allow you to feel completely comfortable, but they also bring their lessons and wisdom. Don't be overwhelmed because it's not about rebuilding the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. Pluto's prolonged presence in Aquarius forces you to focus on developing your performance in the social and professional spheres. You are expected to be very intelligent, willing to cooperate for the good of all, and also knowledgeable about new technologies. On April the 27th, the new moon in your sign reinforces a tense dialogue that forces you to confront authority. This is due to the resistance to aligning self-expression with what the group needs. Due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto, it's not about everything and nothing, so that both parties are satisfied. We are talking about your social and professional realms. Be attentive and ready to negotiate. The end of the month leaves you with the open question: how can you better connect to expand the resources you need? Gemini, the sun's passage through Aries activates and illuminates your relationships with your groups or friends, and especially with your hopes. This year, moreover, is very special because it marks Neptune's first entry into that area, so it will bring a spiritualization of your hopes, certainly amplifying them. It will also envelop all these issues with a diffuse but brilliant energy. It will attract its magic, and it will be easier for you to live it than when Neptune was in Pisces, where it erased concrete possibilities in the social and professional spheres. So this is the reason why both socially and professionally there remains a profound review to be made. Take advantage of the Mercury and Venus retrogrades to, on the one hand, realize which beliefs, thoughts, and contacts you need to review, clarify, and recover. On the other hand, with Venus retrograde, you can give yourself the space and time to recognize what it is you truly want and desire. Once you've done this, you'll find that Saturn, speaking to you or someone else, is asking you to commit and act with discipline and perseverance so that everything you propose reflects your maturity and commitment. This is the area where you most want to grow. So slowly but surely get to work as organized as possible. The simple dialogue that Saturn has with Uranus will allow you to find your own particular new form of discipline, allowing you to grow exponentially in breadth and depth. Remember that Jupiter will be in your sign for 2 more months, pushing you to grow and promising more that you can immediately fulfill, but also establishing issues and proposals that must be leveraged by the next 12 years. Furthermore, we are counting the weeks until Uranus enters your sign for the first time, and then your mind will explode with new ideas, proposals, and situations that will revolutionize your life. This month, Mars will drive everything from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of your true identity. Your goal is to protect what you have and what you value, and with the full moon in Libra on April the 12th, a difficult dialogue forms with Mars in Cancer, itself ruled by the moon. So action is sudden and imperative to protect what you consider important and valuable. The truth is, it hurts to acknowledge where we feel hurt and abandoned, but we are also obligated to be fair to our children. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. Furthermore, Mars will be back in a balancing dialogue with Pluto, which will manifest in the urgency to feel that we are capable of achieving transformation by acting on our own without fighting with others. The Sun's advance into Taurus implies an activation and renewal of the institutions where you work. These have been undergoing a change, and this will become even more pronounced on April the 27th with the new moon in Taurus. This will reinforce the tense dialogue that forces you to confront judicial authorities or even those at universities if you are studying, due to the reluctance to present your own self-expression in line with what the group has established and assumes as correct. Due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto, it's not about giving in 100%, but rather recognizing that authority will not be on your side, but not against you either. Be smart and see what's best for you. This won't be your only opportunity to express yourself, and you don't need to lose everything to show off for now. Pluto in Aquarius will ask you for a long time to strengthen your ideas and knowledge to become an institution of knowledge, not just superficially, but in depth. At the end of the month, we are left with the certainty that life is on your side and you will be able to expand without limits. Enjoy it. Cancer, the sun's passage through Aries is always a challenge for you because it brings an energy of action and initiative that makes you uncomfortable and anxious about what lies ahead. Conquests always change things and jeopardize what you've earned, and this year is no exception. On the contrary, Neptune's energy has come to the professional and social sphere, and everyone will begin to ask you for new achievements and goals that will take years to manifest because they are ideal, enormous, and vague to a certain extent. Mars is still in your sign and is moving towards the opposition with Pluto, which means reawakening your instincts and the drive to move and achieve what you want. This is the third time it's happened, although now it will happen in the area of your resources. So the task is to awaken your creativity, to move with it, to transform what you gain. Remember that it's an agreement between what you want to create and what others need. The reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to our instincts and then what we are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what we can do and what we can't. This month, Mars drives everything from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of our true identity. The goal is to achieve spiritual and warrior-like postures that allows us to mature and maintain presence, calm, and the energy to move forward. As a Cancer, you've already experienced the benefits of Neptune in the area of higher learning. Now it's a time to apply all those teachings to the world at large. What I propose is that you recover all or gather all your knowledge and embody it, that you truly be a warrior of the spirit and present yourself serene, centered, and steadfast, not out of foolishness, but because it will be vitally important that you present your best presence from now on. Even the full moon in Libra on April the 12th sets up a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon, so action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we will feel hurt and abandoned, but also compelled to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so that you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity in your social and professional arenas. With the sun's passage into Taurus, which implies an activation and renewal of your groups and hopes, you've already had Uranus in that space of your life for a long time, connecting with new people, new circumstances, and new friends who renew your hopes as well. This theme is accentuated on April the 27th with the new moon in Taurus, which forces a balance between what you value and what others value. Recognize, as I was saying, what others value and what you want to express. In this, the opinions of others don't help much for now. Give yourself time to assimilate what you need. Mercury reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual teachings. The presence of Saturn demands that you be very organized, focusing on mental and creative practices that express all the learning you are receiving and which you wish to increase through the presence of the North Node, which fosters a hunger for spiritual knowledge in your case. Venus leads you to review your true desires, but understood from a universal perspective, you may develop creative and artistic processes. Return to your studies so that you can create or appreciate them in any form. You will understand the value of harmony and beauty. If you commit to these studies, whether creative or spiritual, Saturn sextile Uranus indicates that with discipline you will find new ways of understanding and appreciating. Commit yourself. Growing for now with Jupiter in Gemini means not being afraid of new ideas. Listening to what others say doesn't necessarily have to do with you. So don't get caught up in it or get suspicious. Learn to converse lightly without putting yourself in a bad light. The point is that you do have to listen because society as a whole, with Pluto in Aquarius from your perspective, is undergoing a process of transformation that is moving in the direction that suits the majority, not necessarily to protect the established order. On April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus reinforces the tense dialogue that forces us to confront authority. This is due to the resistance to conform our self-expression to what the group needs, due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto. It's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. At the end of the month, we are left with the open question of what's worth recognizing in order to open a relationship with our spirit so that we cooperate with the universal good. Leo, the sun's passage through Aries encourages your inspirations, new studies, and distant travels. However, on this occasion, the sun approaches Chiron, which brings to consciousness memories from the past that awaken wounds regarding the knowledge received or not received at universities, courts, or travels, long ones especially. All of these left a wound. This will be activated by the full moon in Libra on April the 12th, and it forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which in itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we feel hurt and abandoned, but also obligated to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and grace. A more permanent change is Neptune's entry into Aries, which will bring a spiritual message for you for a long time. And you must learn this, but no coherence. You can get lost in manipulations and ideological or spiritual lies. Pay attention to who you talk to and who will most willingly accept your creative self-expression. It's about inspiring you, not manipulating you. The sun's advance into Taurus is not so comfortable for you and always implies an activation and renewal of your social and professional areas. Therefore, on April the 27th, with the new moon in Taurus, the tense dialogue that encourages you to confront authority is once again reinforced. You encounter resistance to your self-expression in relation to what the group needs, due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto. It's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. This month, Mars encourages everything from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of your true identity. The goal isn't to confront your partner or associates because they want or have the upper hand, but rather to negotiate with them, both socially and professionally, to do the intelligent thing. This way, you can sustain relationships. It takes effort, but of course, you can do it. With the Mars-Pluto opposition reestablished this month, we have the opportunity to test our instincts and how capable we are of acting with them and for them. The action of the planets in Pisces suggests a review and farewell to situations you are about to leave behind in order to move towards the new that Neptune in Aries brings you, as I already explained. Review emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments that must be fulfilled in order to transform. First, with Mercury, understand that we are a whole and that for now, aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies in order to cooperate with the universal field. The Sun's passage through Taurus usually involves learning, higher education, legal matters, or long trips. Uranus in that sign has been proposing new ideas to you for some time now, and it's about to conclude its message, moving mid year to Gemini for the first time, where Jupiter is now located. If we think about the last 10 months, new social and professional proposals have emerged that I advise you not to waste. With Uranus, surprises and innovations in this area will be much more daring and expected. Most immediately, on April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus reinforces a tense dialogue that forces you to confront to others because you think we are proposing new knowledge. However, self assertive and individualistic leadership clashes with a group that wants to feel equal and involved. It's certainly not easy for you to deal with the situation, but you offer the best of yourself, your willingness to serve, and the new group spirit you are learning. The force exerted by the planets in the sign of Pisces is culminating 13 years of emotional learning. This process has a powerful culmination now with the presence of Mercury and Venus retrogrades, Saturn and the North Node. Neptune has left Pisces for now, but will return for the latter part of the month. Take advantage of this Mercury's review of emotional situation, inspiration, and even spiritual commitments, leading us to understand that no one is about divinity, no matter how much we see it that way, and that placing such high expectations on one person is unfair to either party. Venus leads us towards a review of true desires. Even if we want to live them with our partner, we must understand them from a universal and essential perspective to love for the sake of feeling love, regardless of the people or situations, and to value what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, making the universal incarnate within ourselves with commitment and compassion. As for Saturn, sextile Uranus, it compels us to renew discipline, creating new ways to free ourselves from the past and create something new. The North Node amplifies the ideal, but you already have the experience to know what it explains to you. No one lives up to the divine. In reality, what is being asked for you is a commitment to seeing divinity in others as well as in yourself, because we are all part of the creation.
Virgo, with the Sun's passage through Aries, you are regularly encouraged to allow for changes, conclusions, and endings. Now, another door opens with Neptune's recent entry into Aries for the first time. So be aware of what happens in terms of conclusions because the door will be open for a few months. Then it will return to Pisces, where it has taught you countless lessons in sensitivity, feelings, drama, victimization, and conclusion in your partner's area. The force exerted by the planets in the sign of Pisces is culminating 13 years of emotional learning in the area of your partner and associates. This process has a strong culmination now due to the presence of the retrogrades of Mercury and Venus, Saturn, and the North Node. Neptune has left Pisces, as I said, for now, but will return for the latter part of the year. This month Mercury takes advantage of the fact that as it reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments, it leads you to understand that no one is above divinity, no matter how much we see it, and that placing such high expectations on one person is unfair to either party. Venus leads us to review our true desires. Even if we want to live them out with our partner, we must understand them from a universal and essential perspective, to love for the sake of feeling love, regardless of the people or situations, and to value what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, bringing the universal into being within ourselves with commitment and compassion. As for Saturn, in harmony with Uranus, it leads us to renew our discipline, creating new ways to free ourselves from the past and create something new. The North Node amplifies the ideal, but you already have the experience to know what it explains to you. No one lives up to the divine. In reality, what is being asked of you is a commitment to seeing divinity in others as well as in yourself, because we are all part of the creation. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is in itself ruled by the moon. So action is sudden and imperative to protect what we have gained. But circumstances will present themselves in such a way that we will feel hurt and abandoned. But here comes the closure of what happened. This doesn't mean repeating or forgetting, but rather understanding from other perspective that what happened was unfortunately. If you view it with compassion, nevertheless, for yourself and everyone involved, it will certainly enable you to forgive those involved and circumstances. Only then will you able to move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. Mars drives these months from protective actions with your friends to the expressive confrontation of your true identity. From the 18th until May the 1st, there will be confrontations in the institutions where you work and in relation to your daily activities. Remember that teamwork is the new way forward, and it is here to stay. The sun's passage through Taurus normally involves apprenticeships, higher education, legal matters, or long trips. Uranus in that sign has been proposing new ideas to you for some time now, and it is about to conclude its message, moving mid-year to Gemini for the first time, where Jupiter is now located. If we think about the last 10 months, new social and professional proposals have emerged that I advise you not to miss. With Uranus, surprises and innovations in this area will be much more daring and unexpected. Most immediately, on April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus will reinforce the tense dialogue that forces you to confront one another because we think we are proposing new knowledge. However, self assertive and individualistic leadership clashes with the group that wants to feel equal and involved. It's certainly not easy for you to deal with this situation, but you offer the best of yourself, your willingness to serve, and the new group spirit you're learning. At the end of the month, the union between the moon and Jupiter in Gemini leaves you with a question. How will you renovate your social and professional areas? Be attentive to what the next 2 months will show you, because through that you will innovate in the following years with Uranus in Gemini. Let's look forward to it.
Libra. The sun's passage through Aries vitalizes your relationships and partnerships. For a while, Chiron's presence in this sign has brought to your awareness memories or situations that impose a harsh reality, from which you seek to heal your partner or partners in every relationship you encounter. In all cases, a wound remains, a mark that is difficult to erase, and you are not expected to do so. What you can choose is to forgive because you now have a different understanding of the personal circumstances of everyone involved. It is not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th invites you to examine yourself and hopes that you will truly balance your relationship with your partner, your social and professional situation, and your relationship with your spouse. Dialogues is difficult because Mars in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, incites sudden and imperative action to protect what you have earned with all your hard work. If your partner is hurt, it's not something you can avoid because what you earn or have gained, if your partner or associate didn't budge, it's not your responsibility, nor does it force you to give up your earnings. Be intelligent and fair with yourself, as well as elegant in defending your position. Neptune's entry into Aries, your area of partnerships, brings you a lesson and experience considered fundamental for you. Let me explain. Libra naturally aspires to be in a relationship to feel good. Neptune will exaggerate this presence, but its main function is to make you see that the ideal is divinity. No one lives up to that. You may meet extraordinary people, but they are only human. Their function will be exactly that, to inspire you to return to divinity, yours, theirs, and everyone's. Of course, it's an essential part, but we are all humans with flaws and virtues at different levels. As the sun moves into Taurus, you once again feel the presence of Uranus, stirring up situations that aren't moving forward or concluding out of convenience. Even the new moon on April the 27th in this sign reinforces the tense dialogue between what you want to express individually with what your friends and your children and loved ones want to renew. You encounter natural resistance to the resources you receive, but renewing them involves adjusting your self-expression to what the group needs. Due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto, it's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so both parties are satisfied. If it were a creative process, what you have to do is undertake creations with novel artistic languages, materials, and proposals that will be built over 20 years, with the hope that you can put your own stamp or personal touch on them. You are the one who knows, understands, and perceives beauty and harmony. Regarding the processes in the sign of Pisces imposed by Mercury and Venus in retrograde, Saturn and the North Node in the area of daily work, they are reaching the beginning of the conclusion that has been manifesting for 13 years. It's not definitely over yet, but it is preparing for its conclusion. If you have experienced this in work-related processes, perhaps victimization and confusion are ways that must evolve towards balance. The same in health, recovery processes, as well as with pets that have demanded dedication and sacrifice. Mercury reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments, which leads you to understand that the compassion you have experienced sustains that you are a whole, and that for now, spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and deception to cooperate with the universal field. Venus leads you to review your true desires, but understood from a universal and essential perspective, loving for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes you grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, making the universal incarnate within you with commitment and compassion. Saturn involving Uranus offers a renewal of discipline. Now that you know how far you are capable of giving yourself, you can decide whether or not to move towards a better expression of yourself, both in your professional life and in your own health. Both Jupiter in Gemini, still for 2 months, and Pluto in Aquarius allow you to access knowledge, new creative ideas, and new relationships with your children, which will increase now that Uranus enters Gemini in the coming months, from July to November, and definitely in 2026. At the end of the month, we are left with the open question of what is worth recognizing in order to seek, learn, and teach new knowledge that allows for greater harmony among all, overcoming deception and victimization, as well as self-sacrifice. In short, how can we act intelligently for the good of all? Scorpio. With the sun's passage through the sign of Aries, the workplace and health issues are vitalized. For years, a wound that never fully heals has been emphasized. But this isn't because you resist accepting what's happening, but because, truth be told, something was imposed on you that exceeded all expectations. Under these circumstances, there's little you can do except understand that each person acted from their own personal circumstances. Forgiveness is necessary for your own healing and learning. This situation is emphasized by the full moon in Libra on April the 12th because it forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect yourself because you will feel hurt and abandoned, but also compelled to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, and I repeat, about understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. Now, the ruler of Scorpio, like that of Aries, is Mars. It is still in Cancer for the first half of the month, as we already explained. But as it moves into Leo, it will once again form a difficult dialogue, driving the emergence of the need to express who you are and that you have the power. Remember that true power lies not in commanding, but in bringing oneself to the force of action, regardless of external circumstances. So this month, Mars drives everything from protective actions to the expressive confrontation on our true identity. The goal is to achieve a spiritual and warrior stance that allows us to mature and sustain presence, calm, and the energy to move forward. Furthermore, Neptune's first entry into Aries in the workplace will require you to develop within that environment the ideal spiritual drive that gives meaning to the daily achievements of both the work accomplishments and the treatment received. Success lies in understanding what one is striving for and revealing that spiritual gains in that area of life. Pluto's permanent presence in Aquarius will replenish a new foundation for you, forging a bond with your ancestors, parents, and origins. All of these stem from a new understanding of who you are and where you come from. Being a conscious part of your family's soul never weakens you. On the contrary, it allows you to enjoy all your vital energy and above all to pass it on to your descendants. With the sun's passage into Taurus, your focus shifts to your relationship and partnerships. The presence of Uranus has been shaking up what you once considered normal for years and now presents a completely innovative situation and couples with unique individualities. Now on April the 27th, with the new moon in Taurus, the tense dialogue that forces you to compromise on your professional and social development with your partners and children is once again reinforced. Your own self-expression takes center stage, reflecting what your family needs. Due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto, it's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that all three parties are satisfied. As for the group of planets in the sign of Pisces, Mercury and Venus in retrograde, Saturn and the North Node, they begin to conclude matters that Pisces emphasized for many years. Perhaps it was the sacrifice and dedication that were truly devotional, and now it's time to complete the effort with compassion, empathy, and creativity, without forgetting love. Mercury reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments. It is important to understand that we are a whole and that for now, aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies to cooperate with the universal field. Venus, for its part, reviews true desires, understood from a universal and essential perspective, loving for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situation, is valuing what makes us grow spiritually, more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, making the universal come alive with commitment and compassion. Saturn, sextile Uranus, allows us to reach a commitment that will be sustained with the renewal of discipline. The North Node directs us to do more in this regard. Remember that Pisces leads from lies, deception, sacrifice, and addiction to inspiration, idealization, and spirituality. We must be careful to choose the most coherent manifestations and not to be trapped by incoherence. Jupiter in Gemini, in coordination with Pluto in Aquarius, leads you to intelligently and easily say goodbye to what no longer serves you, in the sense of making the choice that strengthens you, free from following family mandates or beliefs that no longer apply. This is the pending task of the month. What do you need to let go of in order to move forward, honoring your origins and looking ahead? Sagittarius, the sun's passage through Aries moves your creative circumstances, and with your children, a period of inspiration is coming, decreed by the recent entry of Neptune into Aries. There you will find the meaning of creating more children of the spirit and of the flesh, overcoming through the light of divinity the pain caused by Chiron's passage in Aries, which brought obstacles or doubts at best, and which imply a recognition of what happened, so that you can overcome the resentment of injustice and find through the full moon on the 12th in Libra the possibility of accepting different points of view offered by your friends and hopes. They will be diplomatic and fair in showing you another perspective on your creativity. The long-term goal is to recognize the meaning of conquering your capacity to create and to offer this as spiritual work filled with light, overcoming the shadow of past pain. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. So action is sudden and imperative to let go of what is supposed to give us security and now only holds us back. We will then be obliged to be fair to our friends and fill our hopes with beauty and harmony. So it's not about inhibiting creativity out of insecurity, but rather trusting that it is the expression of the spirit that needs to emerge to express itself with wisdom and magnanimity. When the sun moves into Taurus, it illuminates the work area, which has brought renewal, intermittent situations, and forced you to deal with the unexpected. It will soon advance to Gemini, giving you a sense of job stability. But for now, on April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus asks you to persevere in your daily tasks so that you can transform your self-expression with knowledge and strengthen your ability to present your ideas in the future. For you, this matter is personal in the sense that you need to recognize the power of your ideas and communication, as well as learn to be creative in expressing them. Work on it every day. This month, Mars encourages everything from protective actions to the expressive confrontation of our true identity. The goal is to achieve a creative, spiritual, and warrior stance that allows you to mature and maintain presence, calm, and the energy to move forward. The reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to your instincts and then what you are capable of doing with them. It is time to face what you can do and what you can't. As for the group of planets in the sign of Pisces, Mercury and Venus in retrograde Saturn and the North Node, they come to take the first step towards concluding a 12-year process that led you to review your origins, your situation at home, and your relationship with your family. Mercury reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments. May they lead you to understand that we are a whole and that for now, aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies to cooperate with the universal field. Venus leads us towards reviewing our true desires, but understood from a universal and essential perspective, loving for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, making the universal come alive with commitment and compassion. As for Saturn's involvement with Uranus, it leads us to a renewed commitment to a new work discipline. Following it will give you structure and freedom, for sure. Jupiter will advance into Cancer in 2 months and bring you new resources to multiply those you already have. Get ready. However, while it remains in Gemini, you will manifest relationships that deserve growth. Pluto will be strengthening your ideas and the ability to communicate them deeply and for the benefit of all involved. At the end of the month, we are left with the open question of what is worth acknowledging in order to open a relationship with your spirit so that you cooperate with the universal good. Capricorn, the sun's passage through the sign of Aries always brings you a review of your situation at home and your relationship with your ancestors. Since Chiron entered Aries, it brought back memories or a situation that causes you pain or suffering. So what is needed is to understand the circumstances of what happened from the perspective of the other participants. The goal is to gain a different perspective, of course. It doesn't mean erasing the past, but it does aim to achieve forgiveness, above all within yourself, so you can move forward. Furthermore, Neptune's entry into Aries can initiate a process of deep cleansing in your home regarding beliefs, demands, and mandates. Everything that involves regaining clarity about your spiritual mission. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we will feel hurt and abandoned, but also compelled to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. The sun's advance into Taurus implies an activation in the area of your children, loves, and creativity. In this matter, you have long been influenced by Uranus, which will bring you new ways of creating and playing with your children and loved ones. This influence will soon end. So think about all the freedom you have enjoyed, invented, and shared over the last 7 years. Mars will encourage and protective actions in the area of your relationship during the first half of the month as it feels the relationship is threatened. The second half will establish expressive confrontation against the group work you are building. Observe and remain calm because the new moon on April the 27th in Taurus once again emphasizes the tense dialogue that forces us to confront authority due to our resistance to aligning our self expression with what the group needs, due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto. It's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. The establishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to our instincts and then what we are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what we can do and what we can't. Regarding the group of planets in the sign of Pisces, Mercury and Venus in retrograde motion, Saturn and the North Node, they come to take the first step towards concluding a 12-year process in the area of communication and your thinking. Mercury especially reviews emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments. Your thoughts need time to lead you to understand that we are all one and that for now aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies to cooperate with the universal field. Regarding Venus in retrograde motion, you will be able to recognize your true desires, but understand them from universal and essential perspective. Love for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes us grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, bringing the universal into being with commitment and compassion. Regarding Saturn in sextile with Uranus, implement a new creative discipline. You have much to say, think, and share with the world. Take advantage of this combination to achieve your creative goal, just the way you like it. At the end of the month, Jupiter and the Moon in Gemini will help us celebrate children, both our inner one and exterior ones. We are left with the open question of what is worth communicating in order to open a relationship with your spirit so that you can cooperate with the universal good. Aquarius, the Sun's passage through Aries awakens a need for assertive communication, which suits you, except for the fact that Chiron has been making you realize for years that actions taken in close quarters with neighbors, cousins, and siblings have consequences which you must assimilate by understanding the perspective of others. Above all, it's in your thinking and communication that you may feel hurt, and this energy aims to make you understand so that you can reach forgiveness and ease the pressure. Furthermore, Neptune's entry into Aries aims to renew your thinking, seeking spirituality and sensitivity. It means acting and communicating the ideal for a long time. The full moon in Libra on April the 12th forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we feel hurt and abandoned, but also obligated to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. The Sun's advance into Taurus implies an activation of issues to resolve your home with your family and your emotional support. For years, the presence of Uranus has disturbed what you had planned and proposed new situations and adjustments that are now culminating. But they certainly require patience, not foolishness, for the renewal to be completed. On April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus reinforces the tense dialogue that forces us to confront authority. This is due to the resistance to aligning our self-expression with the needs of the group, due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto. It's not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. Mars encourages protective actions at work for you during the first part of the month. Then, when it moves into Leo, avoid power struggles, especially with your partner. It's the other way around. You have the power to allow your partner or let your partner to express their creativity, especially in matters related to the home. The goal is to achieve a spiritual and warrior stance that allows you to mature and maintain presence, calm, and the energy to move forward. The reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to your instincts and then what you are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what you can do and what you can't do. As for the group of planets in the sign of Pisces, Mercury and Venus in retrograde motion, Saturn and the North Node, they come to take the first steps towards concluding a 12-year process in the area of your values. Mercury reviews emotional spending, waste, and the disappearance of your resources. But it's more important that you realize that you now value spirituality and sensitivity. As for Venus, it reviews what your true desires are, but understood from a universal and essential perspective. To love for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations. To value what makes you grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It's also an exercise in uniting opposites, making the universal come alive with commitment and compassion. Due to the presence of Saturn in harmony with Uranus, you can implement new discipline in your spending and at the same time embody and commit to your new sensitivity values. At the end of the month, we remain with the Moon and Jupiter in Gemini, in harmony with your sign, so think about which of those values sustain your closest relationships and which ones you will share with your children so that you can cooperate with the universal good. Pisces, when the Sun transits Aries, the area of your resources and values is activated. These resources have been subject to Chiron's harsh influence, which has primarily impacted your self-worth. This means that you are unable to create the resources you need as an unconscious response to the original situation that made you doubt your worth. Consequently, you hesitate to act, which if too late can be done sooner in a fierce or aggressive manner when your own Piscean nature doesn't fully support you. However, Neptune's entry into Aries for a few months brings a rehearsal for the mission that will unfold in the coming years, which is to discover the value of your spirit, the value you acquire by behaving courageously in pursuit of your own ideal despite the wound. You will have the energy to wash away and erase the resentment that caused this self-doubt and to connect with the strength of your spirit and work with faith to strengthen your own resources. The full moon in Libra, opposite the zone of Aries, which we've been on April 12th, strengthens our efforts because it forms a difficult dialogue with Mars in Cancer, which is itself ruled by the moon. Therefore, action is sudden and imperative to protect ourselves because we will feel hurt and abandoned, but also obligated to be fair. So it's not about mending the past, but rather understanding what happened so you can move forward with wisdom and magnanimity. As the Sun advances into Taurus, it implies an activation in the area of communication, which has been undergoing renewal for years and has brought you new neighbors and unexpected situations with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. Furthermore, on April the 27th, the new moon in Taurus reinforces the tense dialogue that forces us to confront authority due to our resistance to aligning our self-expressions with what the group needs. Due to the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto, it is not about giving in 100%, but rather negotiating so that both parties are satisfied. Remember that the task you have now in relation to Pluto is to connect with rational thought, logic, and technology. You don't have to reject your intuitive essence, but rather enrich it with a structure that will deeply give you a lot more. This month, Mars encourages everything from protective actions regarding your children and loved ones to the expressive confrontation of your true identity at work. The reestablishment of the difficult dialogue between Mars and Pluto demands attention to your instincts and then what you are capable of doing with them. It's time to face what you can do and what you can't do. As for the group of planets in the sign of Pisces, Mercury and Venus in retrograde motion, Saturn and the North Node come to take the first step towards concluding a 12-year process within yourself. Mercury reviews your thoughts about emotional situations, inspirations, and even spiritual commitments. The goal is to understand that you are part of a whole and that for now, aspiring to spiritual growth means overcoming confusion and lies and cooperating with the universal field. Venus retrograde motion leads you towards a re-evaluation of your self-image and most importantly, a review of your true desires, but understood from a universal and essential perspective, loving for the sake of feeling love, regardless of people or situations, valuing what makes you grow spiritually more than satisfying worldly desires. It is also an exercise in uniting opposites, bringing the universal into being with commitment and compassion. As for Saturn, in a harmonious dialogue relationship with Uranus, it brings you the discipline to commit to your personal renewal. At the end of the month, we remain with the Moon and Jupiter in Gemini. This invites communication with your family and your origins. Move to understand what your contribution is to the group, the system, and the world, and get to work on it.